Natural? Supernatural. Wow. Well, we're going to holy war this time. Chapter 9, supernatural. This is taking us into some areas of discovery about what in the world was happening in Israel and what was going on between them and the nations around them, and how that all related to some spiritual things, and all of that is unfolding, and this chapter kind of gives us some background, so that is definitely helpful. We've got movement from Egypt into this whole into the promised land, and then trying to figure out what was going on as they entered the land. Why did God give them the instructions he gave them? What was it about these people that were in the land that were an issue? And then he's giving them some directions. And even if you've read through the Bible over and over, I'm going to read through the Bible in a year. I'm going to mix it up, read it in a different translation. I'm going to mix it up again and read it in a chronological one. And at the end of all that, you still don't get, why did they come into this land and treat those people so badly? You go, there's something going on here. There's more to it. There's a bigger story. There's a bigger war. And for most of our lives, the bigger war gets subjugated to whatever is going on in our lives. Have you ever noticed that? God has this agenda. He wants to work in people's lives to bring them to himself because he wants a bigger family. He's dealing with people who are anti-God, anti-Jesus, anti-truth, anti-beauty, anti-love, anti-everything that he represents. And in that anti-part, we're going, but this is my kid, my cousin, my mom, my grandma. And so whatever they do is okay. I may not like it, but really, should there be an eternal destiny that's different than just all goodness and pleasantries? And God in heaven is going, it's really black and white. It comes down to black and white. You're either with me or you're against me. You're either loyal to me or you're disloyal. We've got a bigger thing going on here than how you feel about somebody in your circle. Or it comes down to our feelings. Lord, why would you? I did all of this stuff. I got up and I went to work every day, did my 8 hours, and why should I get cancer? And really, we ask those questions. Have you ever done that? Why would I be treated badly after doing so many good things? He's going, what's that got to do with any of it? The world is fallen. You live in a fallen world. You're in a mortal body, subject to all the stuff around you. Why don't you have the basics down? Why not the basics? So that's where we are. But we don't know this because this isn't the basics that we have been presented with. It's basic, what Heiser points out. This is basic to the people who lived at the time the scriptures are written, and they're going through this. They understood there's a spiritual battle. There's more to this. There's God is at work. There's a whole system opposed to God. There are angelic beings. There are those who are the fallen angels. There's just more going on. And then we read it again through our Read the Bible in a Year program, and we just go, how does this apply to me? What's the promise to me? What's God saying to me that he's going to take care of me, going to make it comfortable, make it better, make it, instead of, he's trying to lay out, here are the basics. This is the world we live in, the system that exists. And we can go, well, what if that weren't true? So what if, when you were born, gravity, you just said, what if gravity didn't exist? Well, it just was here when you got here. But what, just running that through your head, it's one of the basics. And you find that out as a kid. We were watching our little grandkids running around yesterday, and one of them kicks the soccer ball, and it goes off the back of the deck. And if you remember, our deck is like that high above the ground. He's thinking, that'll be a fun game. I'm going to make adults go down and get it and bring it back. So what's he know? Gravity. You just show up, and it's here. And in our heads, we go, what if evil didn't exist? What if sickness didn't exist? What if this were all different? What if? You go, no, that's the world you came into. Here are the basics. If you understand the basics, and it'll help you negotiate all this and see what God has in store. So that's where we are here. Kind of backing up and picking up some of those things that that's just not in our normal storytelling. So that's why it's kind of cool to go back over this stuff. So we get the whole Deuteronomy chapter 32 and the fallout from the Tower of Babel, but the Deuteronomy 32, and God says he divides the nations and he puts a divine being over those nations. He pulls Israel out, or Abraham and Sarah, and brings them into this to become the foundation for a new family that will be his nation. And so Israel will become his nation, pulled out from among all the others. So, okay, that gives us some clue as to what's going on. The other nations all decide, go sideways, and they're worshiping these divine beings who are given charge and failed to do their jobs right. That's Psalm 82. And then we have a breakdown in those relationships. They're anti-God, and God's still looking for a family and a way of redeeming all of humanity, all the nations, and bringing them back. We don't normally get that just reading through the scriptures. And so somehow we need to tie all those different thoughts together. Page 88, down towards the bottom. Moses and the Israelites believed the people who occupied those lands where they're headed were their mortal enemies, and their gods would do all they could to destroy Israel. That's a bit of a problem. Those nations have other gods. They're going to work against Israel in every way they can. They're going to, before Israel, the people of Israel coming out of Egypt, they've got those gods down there that God is having to deal with. He's crushing the gods of Egypt, and he tells them that on the night of Passover. He says, I'm going to show them, all those gods, that I am the Most High. And he does it. And so, that's why they're released from Egypt, and then they begin to travel. And as they travel, they're running into other issues, one of them being faith when they saw the giants in the land, so that created a problem. And we've got the lack of commitment to the Lord, which is part of what happens with the trust, and then the tests come along as they're traveling through for 40 years. Do we trust the Lord or not? He provides food every day. Their clothes never wear out. But they're still like, I don't know. We didn't have water enough here, or one of the solutions to getting rid of them was, let's send down get them involved with a bunch of the young ladies in our town or towns, and we'll just send them out to Israel. And all of a sudden now you've got this whole corruption thing happening. They run off with them, and part of that issue is they're going to worship other gods. So who knew that would work? Did that ever work with the fallen angels? They started that in Genesis 6. They knew that would work with humans too. So we got one thing after another, trial after trial, input from other entities besides the human factor. It's just that we normally read it as the human factor more than we do that there's other gods and other beings involved in all this. God wants to take them to the land flowing with milk and honey. He's got some great things for them, and then they run into, as we get to bottom of 88, Moses sent 12 spies into Canaan to report on the land and its inhabitants. And you know that story. The spies came back with evidence that the land itself was wonderful. It flows with milk and honey, just as God had told them. And then they said, the land through which we have gone to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim. And we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. So the giants, Genesis 6:1-4 tells us that story of where they came from, the giants of old, and now they're running around in Israel, or there's groups of them in the area, and so they are like concerned. They don't want to go in there with those guys. And if you've seen some of the Egyptian hieroglyphs, then you've seen some images, and they'll have like normal sized people and then somebody really big. Normal sized people, somebody really big, and go, what's up with that? Egyptian. You go, yeah. Ooh, I hear something. Is that from over there? Or is that us? Oh, okay. So the Nephilim on 89, they were the sinister spawn of the sons of God and the daughters of humankind back in Genesis 6:1-4. So the giants that they saw are some of the remnants, some of these large, oversized, abnormally big people who are half-breeds with this whole Nephilim group, fallen angel connection, anti-God, I get into that, anti-Eden, who want to destroy, who are not on God's team. They want to destroy humanity. And so...
Is this so interesting? We're watching that silly series, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's like Inhumans.
Yeah.
And they have superpowers because they're, and crazy, and they're out to
destroy human.
Crazy. There we are. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's just, and yet the theme is very similar.
Yeah, it's in the Marvel series, so it's Marvel, like Thor and Captain America and all those guys. But this is the TV series. Yeah, but the fiction covers so much of that. Yeah, and often those stories, even the old nursery tales, you fee, fi, fo, fum, and you go, this is so ridiculous. And you go, maybe not. Maybe they wrote that based on something that somebody encountered, and then that story got passed along. And those things are, strangely enough, worldwide. And not, I was just watching one of those where they were moving, there were stones cut that were in the pyramids. Those are large, so they're like 9 tons blocks that are perfect. Don't have to use mortar; they just fit perfect. That's pretty amazing because we can't do that now. And they moved it from somewhere and put it there in the sand and built these things. And then there are these other blocks, huge ones. Some of them in eastern Turkey, some of them in South America, but they're these blocks that can be, and you go, that's huge. That's a huge, Stonehenge is somewhere in that same realm of tonnage, and then these other blocks are like 600, 900 tons. And you go, sure, you just get enough guys and you put some logs under it and you just roll it over. No, you don't. So how in the world did they do some of that? And where did they find either the technology or the skill, or if they're massive in size, maybe, they can move bigger stuff? I don't know. But it's not a simple, we got this figured out. And those guys were just primitive, and they lived in caves, and we're so advanced.
That kind of made me think, just when you were saying that, everybody said it was a lost technology. God wanted it lost because it wasn't a man's technology. And so, because all our technology now is like learn. We stack on and learn. And that was all lost. And I think maybe God didn't want us to know that. Or that technology, because that wasn't man's technology.
Yeah, some of it came, according to the book of Enoch, there were these fallen angels are the ones who gave that technology to humans and said, here you go, how about this? Also ways to kill each other. And you go, well, thank you for that. And we've built on that one. But yeah, there's been some technology that's been lost, and a lot of those stories, we don't know what was in the Library of Alexandria. They burned it. So what were in those records? And that would have been incredible to hear, to see how much stuff was left over. Yeah. So we got some old stuff, some things that are happening. Let's see what we got on this one. Second chance, page 91, Deuteronomy 2-3 chronicles how during their 40 years of wandering, the Israelites wound up in the territory on the other side of the Jordan. They're coming back to the promised land from the opposite side, and they're going to come back in. They get another chance, and they are in Edom, Moab, and Ammon. And they run into the descendants of Lot, Abraham's nephew, and then his descendants. So they go through that. But they also go to Bashan, which is up north of there. And that was, according to page 92, known as the place of the serpent. That doesn't give you a clue. And it's in connection with other gods. Deuteronomy 1:4, Joshua 13:12 talk about that. Considered gateways to the underworld, realm of the dead. So that would have been the gates of hell. Then they run into, remember the two kings, Sihon and Og, and they're Amorites and part of the Rephaim, and they are giants. So we've got another group of these oversized people, and who have this connection, this anti-God, and anti-human people. They don't mind taking control. They just don't. They're definitely not on our team.
Didn't you tell me, because I think I asked you, could they be good? Could they choose that? But you said it doesn't look like any of them were good.
Mm-mm. Yeah. And it looks like, it may not have just been the DNA that they received, but that they chose, no, we're going to go with these other gods. And they liked doing what they were doing. Some of the stories of these guys, is the stories that are in the documents that they found around the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea Scrolls are Bible scriptures. There's the book of Enoch. There's other things that tell these stories that are in those jars that they dug out, and then other stories that were in the area. And those tell the stories of these giants, and they're out of control. And they're just doing evil to the people around them. They're using up all the resources, because just imagine trying to feed one. The Native Americans said that because the stories are here too, And they said that these giants were so intense and evil that they would come after the people. Once the people couldn't provide enough for them to eat, they began to eat the people. So then they decided, in some of these stories, the tribes would pull together and figure out some way, all of them, to go after the giant and take them out. So those stories, and it's weird because we are on the other side of the world, and you go, And then these oversized blocks that have been moved, these big, the temple dwellings, the Aztecs, and you put all that together, the pyramids, all of those that are similar to what's happening in the Middle East, and you go to Indonesia, you go to the Southeast Asia, you're finding the same designs with the worship involved, and they are trying to reach heaven and connect with the gods, and same as Tower of Babel. And you're going, this is everywhere.
He makes a statement in here, I think it's 8, chapter 8 or something, maybe that, I don't know, where Pharaoh is a god, the Egyptian god, and that's where Moses was talking to him and stuff. Was he a giant? Because it didn't ever say he's a big guy.
No, he's representing the gods. He's considered a god. But, yeah, he wasn't, because he's not part of the Rephaim or any of the, yeah, he's not. When they leave, though, they run into him. That's when they went, uh-oh. Because if they'd seen him in Egypt, maybe they could have thought, oh, maybe we could take him. Then they get there and they go, uh-uh. So, yeah, that'd be a shocker. Those dudes are big. Let's see what else we got on this thing.
So it mentions in here Ashtaroth.
Yeah.
That's in the movie Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. With Angela Lansbury.
Uh-oh. You remember that one being brought up? Yeah, those names kind of circle through, lots of different movies like that. And that's female goddess. So there are gods and goddesses. I mean, you knew that from the Greek mythology. Ashtaroth is here. But those are, they show up in more places than one. And we get into other issues that we probably shouldn't go into right now. But anyway, they're male and female, different ones. Amos 2:9, he's talking about Og and all those guys. The Lord destroyed the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars and who is as strong as the oaks. It just gives you an idea that they're big. That would do something for you, run into those guys. And then, Goliath, the story of Goliath and all that. And so there's a bunch of them, which is what he gets into.
It's interesting, people don't believe the Bible, and I guess Hollywood doesn't believe the Bible, or tries to cover it up, but yet they'll use parts of the Bible, like in games, the names of bad angels and different things, like what Cass is talking with, the movie she was talking about. They dabble a little bit with it, even though they don't maybe believe. If they don't believe in it, you'd think you wouldn't even use it at all. But apparently, they do believe a little bit, or something. I don't know.
Well, they think the story's interesting.
Yeah,
just enough to make a movie.
Yeah, make a profit.
Yeah.
And they get the same storyline from mythology, but mythology, as we find out, really is based in what truly happened.
Yeah. It's all, it all comes together. And when you go back and piece it, like a puzzle, and you go, wow, look at this thing. There's a lot more happening here than we thought. So we definitely have a world that's a little different than maybe we thought. A lot of this, with the spiritual entities, the battle that's going on. So when we read in Ephesians 6 that we should put on the whole armor of God because we're not battling with flesh and blood, you go, oh, you really meant that. As opposed to, well, isn't that cute? Not so cute, especially when you run into some of these guys. let's see. Joshua is supposed to wipe them out. And he says in Joshua 11, this is on page 94, that they have gone all over the place. They've killed a bunch of them. And Joshua devoted them to destruction with their cities. There was none of the Anakim left in the land of the people of Israel. Only in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod did some remain. You go, well, good. There's still some out there. And
You know, I was reading this, and then he later says partial obedience is disobedience. I thought they had to be exhausted. You know, like, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not down on Joshua, and I don't think anybody is, but he almost makes it sound, well, Joshua, you know.
didn't get it done.
Didn't get it done. I thought, well, nobody has. Nobody. Well, Jesus, you know, he's the one, but Joshua and those troops, and what they had to do, and his faith, you
Yeah.
know, I don't see him as I guess he was disobedient, but by golly, I just see him as a hero,
No,
a leader, and
he was.
the point is, partial obedience is disobedience, but it's also just partial disobedience.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like,
Well, it did a lot of good. And they moved out. They moved to the
yes,
coast. Everybody knows where Gaza is now. So
this is true.
we know that one.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Same problem over there. Yep, a few giants escaped. You go, and that's where Goliath comes from, and you know his family. But after that, they get them. I mean, that group is destroyed. So, he's still working on all that stuff. But we do get. I'm going to jump over to page 96. We're talking about this worldview in which there are evil gods and they're having an impact, they influence, and God is trying to get his people back, and he's operating under a system with free will, and still he's trying to accomplish his purpose, and he's allowing all of these things to play out, the evil beings and the evil divine beings and their half-breed kids and all of this stuff. And he's allowing all of those things to play out because he's got a purpose. We probably don't have all that info, as you probably picked up in the next chapter. Some of the stuff he doesn't tell us. You go, dang, but what if? And he's going, I'll tell you when you get here. Till then, you don't get the rest of the story. Because if you had the rest of the story, how much of it would you spill to the enemy? And you go, yeah, that happens. So,
One thing that I wonder, you never heard anything about female demons. All their offspring male,
No, they had the male and female.
it doesn't mention any females that I've seen.
No, there's some hidden places, and then there are female angels too, but they're just in the.
Oh, you got some of the other writings,
You
you see some of that.
see it, yeah.
That baffles me because you say female angels too, they were just created, they weren't by. So I didn't know that. I thought it was just like a male angel, but not really not a man. I don't know. I don't know how to figure it. I haven't figured it out.
Have you read the book of Proverbs? Anybody read the book of Proverbs when you did the read through the Bible thing?
No, we skipped it.
And he says, and so my son, didn't they have daughters? So it's focused on a male side of things. Doesn't mean that females didn't exist or daughters didn't exist. When the demons get loose, we have a problem. There are sexual attacks still happening. We call them incubus, succubus. Female, male. Those are demons. How do you get female demons? Aren't there only male demons? No, they're both. Why? Wait till you get there and you'll get an answer to that. For now, we just know this is the gravity. This is what This is what's been given to us, and we get to deal with it. And saying, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's never been, and you go, just as we're finding out some things as we go through this, you go, oh, it was there all the time.
Well, I've just seen where people say that people have it wrong. They're not women, they're men in birth. And they're really not men either because they...
Yeah, that's happening a lot now.
Yeah.
It's so confusing.
So we're certain that all of that, what did he call it, evil spawn or whatever, is gone? Or could some of them remain? They're just not giants. Or did they all get killed out?
They got killed according to at David's time. They were killed. Does that mean they couldn't? We don't know. I mean, we don't know that. Yeah, and we don't know that there's not DNA floating around too. So there's
Some of that bad
yeah, and some guys have researched that, and it's and don't know.
NBA.
Dude, yeah, NBA. Except they'd be so massive in NBA. Go ahead and try to block them.
Well, can an angel look like whatever he wants to? Because the seraphim is a representation of how the foreheads, and yet they can look like a man. And then I've also told them those are different angels, like powers and seraphim and cherubim.
Yeah, there are all kinds of different ones.
But then they can change too, I guess. I don't know.
So you want to get into shape shifting?
Well,
Like the eagle one.
Good angel said.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that was just how they appeared to those people that see that. That really wasn't how they were. I mean, they appeared. That
So let me just run this through. So Jesus gets out of the grave on that Sunday morning, and he's out in the garden. Mary, who's been traveling around with him for all this time, comes up on him and goes, "Where'd they take him?" So she's talking to Jesus, who's resurrected, standing right there. And then, she finally gets the tears out of her eyes or whatever, and she goes, "Oh, it's you." So it's all on.
I do that now. I see somebody I don't recognize right off. I'm bad, I know.
I'm Randy. A little bit later, he's going down the road and to Emmaus with a couple of guys. They don't know who he is till breaks bread. Then they see him, and they go, "Oh, it's you." Then John, who was like hanging on him, leaning on him, holding on to his robe all the time, gets old. Now he's like 80, 90 years old, and he's stuck on the island of Patmos, and Jesus shows up. First chapter of Revelation. Remember the description? He's just cute, had curly brown hair, these brown eyes. The sword coming out of his mouth, burnished bronze. So how does he appear? Yeah. Is it exactly the same all the time?
No. So he changed. I mean, like a lot of people have near-death experiences, so they couldn't see his face. They just knew he was there or something.
Often that's the case. Yeah. And then others see his face in sometimes positive, sometimes negative. Depends. His eyes are the giveaway for when they meet him face to face. But he's appearing, the way he's appearing is often communicating as much as what he has to say. So like the first chapter of Revelation ties into passages of Ezekiel and Isaiah, and it's tying us back into Old Testament truth, and it's giving us more of a clue as to who he is. And those angels with eyes all the way around, they're seeing and they're taking in things. So we're being shown something that lets us know God is seeing more. There's representation in that. And then at other times, they're just normal dude who helps you change a tire on a car on a rainy night on the lonely highway. You go, He just seemed like a good guy, jumped in his 57 Chevy pickup and drove off and disappeared. And you go, yeah. And then we're told, don't ignore those angels because you're kind of unaware that, because they look like everybody else. I like Heiser's thing. If they showed up at your door, knocked, and they had big wings hanging out, you'd notice. Yeah. So, or forehead, faces, just that whole thing. But those are different. Those are called living beings. So there's seraphim. So we know we've talked about this before. We're looking at 1 to 3% of the creatures on this planet that have been here. That's left right now, 1 to 3%, because of fossils, and you can look back at species. So if 97% of the variety of things that existed before are gone, and we're just looking at a small percentage, it's pretty wild. I mean, you just go to walk through the Tulsa Zoo, and you go, look at all these different creatures. That's amazing. Heaven's been here longer. Surely there's only one kind of angel, one kind of seraphim, one kind of, we kind of do that, don't we, in our heads? And you go, they're just one kind. No, this is the variety here. Multiply that, because when he talks about the number of angels, and he's talking about, billions upon billions of them, and you're going, they're not just clones. Like in Star Wars, these are this is huge, different variety things happening out there. And they're around. I mean, they're still around, engaged with us. And then the fallen ones,
So they don't change then?
they can appear in ways that could be meaningful at that time. They're not shapeshifters. I mean, they're not going to be one thing. They are them, like Jesus is him. But the perception Mary didn't recognize him, the guys in Emmaus, but then they recognize him, and he looked like a human being. And he can go through walls, and he can do all that stuff. But in John, Revelation 1, you got a whole different thing going on, because he's revealing himself manifesting in a different way. So he can manifest, and he's going to give the angels ability to manifest as well. So sometimes they may be like giant, standing in the river, one leg on one side, one leg on the other, look like burnished bronze, and speak, and it just thunders. And then the guy next to you, just in a little robe, he's an angel too. And after you pass out and have to clean yourself, then he reaches down and helps you stand back up. But it's manifestations as well, because he's communicating something. So, yeah.
It's all complicated. Once we get there, we'll see it all.
Yeah. Absolutely want to see it all.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be so fun. Yeah, it's fun looking at the stuff now, here. That's going to be really fun. But remember, he's dealing with the evil one. So here's the evil gods. They remained intact. And he's talking about the promised land had come under the rule of other gods and their peoples. It's on 96. And the same worldview permeates the New Testament too. Paul uses terms like principalities, authorities, thrones, and powers to describe the forces of darkness. They're all talking about geographical rule. So these are the beings who have been placed here, who had different, and there's different levels of responsibility. There's a hierarchy, and they have a place, and they're all over the world. Oh man. And they can manifest as well. They have those powers, just like we were just talking about. The angels, they didn't lose their powers. They've lost some authority on how far they can go, but they still have a power to. Cass asked the other day about, can they control weather? Yeah, that's why Baal is shown with a thunderbolt in his hand in the statues, carvings. He is the god of the storm. So the reason on Mount Carmel when Elijah is having a contest with the prophets of Baal, is they build their altar, and he says, you go first. Who is in charge of lightning? He says, just have your God light that thing. Baal. Baal didn't light it. So Elijah has water brought up. They coat his wood, his altar in water, and then ask the Lord, and then it lights. The God of the weather. Does that mean that he had absolute control of weather? No, but in a localized geographical area, those gods do. There were gods who controlled the Sea of Galilee, and they would periodically, the storms would come up, and the fishermen would know they're in deadly peril because they're trying to take them down. And Jesus can be out there on the boat and go, don't sweat it, peace, and stop it. Because the demons, the gods, have no authority over him. So he's stopping it. Do they have power in a limited area? Yeah, that's why they're worshipped the way they are. That's why Baal was worshipped. He could provide rain. A storm could come by and keep their crops growing and their livestock alive until Elijah prays. God has him go hide out because he knows Ahab's going to come after him. Go hide out, tell it stop raining. So it does for 3.5 years. That proves that God is the one ultimately over the weather. It also shows that Baal has short-term, short-range weather-related control. And all of these gods have something. It's not all weather, but they can, some of them do have. But you think of principalities and powers, and who can influence a number of people so that they buy a product? What would make somebody rich? What can you sell? A particular kind of food or a restaurant chain or an invention? And some of them are just dumb. People sold pet rocks. Pet rocks. You can go outside and pick one up. Pet rock. They sold them. I'm not saying that was demonic, but anyways, maybe dumb, but not demonic. But there's influences on Wall Street. There's influence in Hollywood. There's influence, and there's somebody says buy this, sell that. You go, how would you know that? Well, if you have insider information, really insider information, you can control a whole lot. And principalities, authorities, thrones, and powers. It's part of what we're dealing with.
That's what I like about Heiser. When you read in the Bible, you're on holy ground, take your shoes off or whatever. I never really thought about, the flip side of that is that's not holy ground over here. But he always looks at the other side to kind of let you know that. And that
helps.
I never really did that. It kind of makes you think different.
And appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the hidden in plain sight, which we will do just really quick, that's the next chapter 10. They're dealing with, and we kind of talked about this before, they are expelled from Eden. God wants to bring them back, got to defeat the serpent and the other powers that have rebelled, and you got to shut them down. And so the Lord's come up with a plan. He had this plan before the world was made, but he has this plan, and he's going to send his son, who's the only one who can rescue us. And he gives bits and pieces in the scripture, but he doesn't give it all. And he doesn't put it all in one place, because as Americans, we want it alphabetized and all in one chapter. Because just show me that chapter and let me read through it, and I'll say, yeah, if I like it or not. And he goes, that's not how this works. And he didn't put it there, as you know, as you read that the enemy would read it and go, oh, that's your plan. So we're just gonna take you out. And that wise on his part to keep that hidden. 1 Corinthians 2, it's on 99 at the bottom. We speak the hidden wisdom of God and a mystery. which God predestined before the ages for our glory, which none of the rulers of this age knew. For if they had known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. So God sends Jesus. They get ticked off. They think the solution is kill him. And of course, that lets him go into the realm of the dead as a human being and take the keys. Ha! Winner, winner, chicken dinner. He showed them unbelievable brilliance in this thing. But it's hidden. This is not everything being revealed, not everything, and all those things about Jesus is the greatest teacher. He just puts all the, everything on a low bar so everybody can get it. And you go, no, he doesn't. He does it in parables so people don't understand. Why? Because the enemy comes along and tries to steal this stuff. Remember, the word is the seed being thrown out. On good soil, it produces. So those who are responding to him, who are loyal to him, will get it. And those who don't, the enemy comes along, takes the word, and it goes away. So he is trying to get his family back, but the family he wants are those who want to be with him, who want to be loyal to him, who love the Lord their God with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength. Pretty much been the same all along. We just got some more information as we've been digging through some of this. Additional information to go with it. So we don't want Satan and the lesser gods to know about all this stuff.
It was after. In this chapter, it makes a little more sense why so many of them, when he came, they thought he really was going to come in, take charge, because they didn't have all the information. We look at it and think, well, what were you expecting? But that's because we're on the other side.
Yeah, we can look back and see
They
it.
didn't have all that information.
They had a puzzle and no box with a picture on it. They had no idea. Yeah, how does this fit together? But he is busy doing just so many cool things. And he gave enough information, or proved himself in a variety of ways, so that people could know he is the Most High. He is the most powerful. He's the one who has the greatest authority. And so you could trust him from the get-go. And then as we go along, by the time we get to this stage, we can look back and go, wow, look what he did. This is so amazing. He put this all together. The kingdom was the beginning of the end for the Lord of the dead. All of that stuff that Jesus was doing was tearing up everything that the enemy, from Satan and the rest of them, they're doomed. And he's coming after them. And I like all of the things he begins to say on 104. We must again remember who we are and where our identity comes from. Believers collectively, as the church, are called the body of Christ. And Jesus' body was raised. We will rise because he is risen. He is the firstborn of the dead. We are the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven. And John, but as many as received him, to those who believe in his name, he gave to them authority to become children of God. And as we've been going through this, the whole designation of children of God were the angels in the Old Testament. So when you go, okay, those are divine beings, and he does call Israel his son. I mean, there's some connections there, but we are now called by those same names. You go, something immense has taken place. Something, and it's across the board. If we believe in him, we become children of God. We become those divine, we join the divine beings, and all of that future is ours.
I never realized that spiritual warfare was so big. I mean, I knew there was problems, but not to this magnitude. I actually think, I'm in my head thinking that Satan may think he has a chance against God if he can get enough humans, which are a little lower than the angels, on his side to fight him. And, In other words, I know he knows he can get whipped, but then he also thinks that maybe I've got a chance, or why is he doing all this? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, to delay it.
Yeah.
He knows it's coming.
Yeah.
Just put it off as long as you can.
So just tear everything up.
Yep, pretty much.
I'd be begging for mercy. I'm sorry, Lord.
That's us.
Yeah.
Yeah, not available to him. He's getting ready to restore his original plan. You see it in Revelation. He brings like the Eden, the kingdom, his kingdom back around. So at the end of this chapter, we'll see in the next 2 chapters that was just enough information to prompt faith in people's hearts and to bait the powers of darkness into putting their own destruction into motion. Yeah. Go get them. So we'll do 2 more, 11, 12. Next go around. Let's pray. Father, thank you. Thank you for some time together. Thanks for the things that you're doing. Thank you for the victory over the forces of evil. And Lord, we're looking forward to all that good that you bring. Thank you for loving us enough to send your Son and make it possible. And we pray, Lord, that you would look over this congregation and our gathering today and be pleased.